Let's bring them up on stage. This is Shopping Discovery, a brand's perspective. It's going to be moderated by JP Mangalindan, writer at Fortune. Here come David Geisinger, head of retail business strategy at eBay, Robert Yao, the director of product management at Walmart Labs, and Will Young, director of Zappos Labs and general partner of the Vegas Tech Fund. Guys?
Thank you.
Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Really appreciate it. So all three businesses that you work at, they were founded for social, at least as we know it, really took off. So I'd love to hear how you're integrating social into your businesses and whether or not you find yourself to be at any sort of disadvantage compared with, say, a startup that launches on day one with social built right in.
Yeah, so for many of you, you think of eBay as a traditional auction environment, but we're a lot more than that, right? So we have marketplaces, we have payment, we have e-commerce with our GSI business, and so many other businesses along with it. What people tend to forget is that actually eBay was founded as a social environment. Our whole business model was based around connecting buyers and sellers together. So when you ask if we are at a disadvantage from startups today, I would actually argue the contrary. We have one of the largest social networks in the world that is very compelling based on the content that people are actually looking for, the items that people are looking for on a daily basis. We're connecting these buyers and sellers across the globe on a daily basis on an epic scale.
Okay, and from our side, Walmart Labs was created about 2 years ago, and actually we were created based out of a company that was acquired, Cosmics. Our expertise were actually looking at social data, so it's actually at the core of our business today. So, and what that means is we look at what people are interacting, how they're interacting on the social side, what they're sharing, and using that information essentially to leverage that for the commerce. So I was at the key of it, that is essentially our expertise, social data.
I think on the Zappos side, not quite as ahead of both of those. And we weren't social in the beginning. So just like you said, it wasn't part of our original fabric. So it was a challenge. We've launched probably years ago something called My.Zappos, like a social network of our customers. And to no one's surprise, looking back, no one wanted to follow other Zappos customers. Like it didn't work. Like I think where Winalo works really well is because it's a community. It's not just for one brand. So I think that's one of our challenges. At Zappos Labs, we really try and push social, so I think we're trying to create separate shopping experiences other than the main website where it is kind of social first, and that's kind of where we tackle it that way.
Got it. Question for you, Robert. I know you came from Cosmics before, but obviously Walmart is one of the biggest retailers out there. But a study last year revealed that supposedly 50% of Walmart customers also shop online at Amazon. Amazon's doing very well online. How are you guys sort of keeping pace with regards to the innovation and social?
Yeah, so the key focus for us is it's essentially the journey of the consumer. So the journey meaning where are the entry points. Entry points today can be in many places, be it on your desktop, your mobile, or actually in store. And that's one thing that Walmart have a great channel against, because we actually have all that space. And at the end of the day, we're optimizing for the user experience, going where the consumers are going. And that means if I'm looking at products on the mobile, I could pick that product up in store, or I could have it delivered to my home, and vice versa. Whether you're in store, if something's not available in the store, we could send it to your home also. So we're looking at it at that perspective, basically optimizing it for the end user experience. At the end of the day, we're saving them money, but in addition to that, by focusing on the user, we're saving them time too. And that's something that we believe we're good at doing today, and we're going to get better as we move on.
Got it. Well, sort of speaking to that, where are they going? Where are the Walmart users going, for instance? I mean, it's sort of traditionally known that Walmart caters to a very sort of frugal audience with regards to low prices.
Right. I think that is a perception that people, obviously I think everybody wants something for the best value, regardless of who you are. I think one of the things is you want your money to go further. But what we've seen is that definitely we have a high demographics online, but we're also seeing almost 50% of our online users actually will pick the option to go to the store and pick up the item. So we have a feature called ship to store. So essentially, you order the item online, and then you pick up in your local Walmart stores. And that's where we're seeing, almost 50% of the users who go online pick that options. Now, what that also means is, we have a lot of opportunities there. We got opportunity to grow the concept of, having delivered to your home, or the fact that you're shopping on your mobile. It's similarly, having to go into your home or going to the store. So we have many different platforms that we could play with. The key is going back to my first reply regarding, we try to focus on the whole journey of what consumers are doing.
Got it. Well, I'd love to hear from all of you or one of you, sort of what you're working on right now, what you're learning from the data you guys are slowly acquiring about user behavior.
Yeah, so I think in the last panel, somebody referred to it as investing in discovery. eBay is very focused on investing in engagement. So we talk about social as a medium, or you talk about social. I mean, social's been around forever. From our perspective, it's just another medium. Right? At the end of the day, the experience that consumers have, whether it be online or offline, in store, on a mobile device, on the web, has to be unified. So whether it's buy in store or buy online, pick up in store, I mean, that's table stakes now. I don't think traditional retailers can live without that consumer experience. So what we're working on, in some cases, enabling the traditional retailer to create better engaged experiences with consumers. So some of you may have seen last week, we just launched in New York City a new brand for Kate Spade Saturday. And what we've actually done is enable 4 storefronts, just windows, with a digital window, touchscreen window, that enables consumers to interact with that window 24 hours a day to buy product from Kate Spade Saturday and actually have it delivered any place they are within an hour, 24 hours a day. So it's enabling that experience, bridging the gap between traditional retail with mobile and online, and you should see the social interaction, the crowds that gather, and just because one person's doing it, another person's doing it, and all the communication around it. So we're really working very heavily to enable not only our own businesses, but traditional retailers to engage consumers in ways that they've never been able to be engaged before.
What about you, Will?
On the Zappos lab side, we launched a product called Glance recently, which was our curated shopping experience. So that's been great, and we had kind of 2 goals on that is, could Zappos as a brand push curated experiences? Like, this is what we think you should be interested in today. So we're learning a lot there. Like, people, when I say Zappos, who thinks shoes right away? So a lot of people. So I think, can we as a brand push things other than shoes, like fashion, and be credible in that space? And then we also created Glance to be a bit more social first. So now as we add social things, does it resonate more with customers? So I think those are things we're continuing to look on. And then another thing that we're looking at this year is we have a lot of customers, like both of you guys, probably not nearly as much as both of you guys, but we have built-in communities in our customer base. Like, we have people who love to run. We have people who love to mountain bike, climb, whatever. How do we kind of connect those people without making it an explicit social network? Like, follow David because he's a runner. Like, no one really wants to do that, but how can we kind of build those implicit connections is, I think, things we're exploring.
Well, sort of speaking to that, I mean, how do you guys integrate like new social features without jarring customers, interrupting the experience?
So the way I look at it is this, there's a reason why people want to social proof, where it makes sense. So a good example is I've seen many folks doing the social, where once you check out, do you want to share this? I mean, to be honest with you, if I buy something, it's very rarely I want to tell everyone about it. So I think it's going back to the right context around that. In our case, we're looking at social, not necessarily about the interactions in the traditional sense. We're looking at what people are doing, and can we identify ways that we could help that experience in terms of discovery experience. We're talking about discovery. It's one of the big things that we're doing is, if you look at shopping today, what I call the shopping 1.0, it's very transactional based. I go on the site, I know exactly what I want. I go to a search box, boom, I find what I need. But there's this whole area of discovery shopping, which is more of an expression-based, more of experience-based, where, and this is a good example when people go to a shopping mall, where typically I'm not there to actually buy things. I don't, my mindset is not to buy. My mindset is just enjoy myself. It's at that point, how do we how do we serve up potential items? How do we discover things that we think that might suit your current environment? And that current environment can be many things. It could be online, browsing websites, or in store, just walking around. So it's something we're exploring in terms of how we could leverage the discovery aspect of it.
And so playing off that earlier comment that I made around sort of investing in engagement, we have a heavy focus around proactive engagement. So in the last dialogue, someone talked about push versus pull. Right? So proactive engagement for us even included on our traditional marketplaces site where we've integrated or in our building technology called Feed, where you're getting personalized, relevant content and items that are relevant to what you're looking for. So I'm a big car collector, right? Antique car collector. So every day when I go on eBay, I see relevant products related to what I'm interested in from other sellers, which essentially is my community. Those are my community of folks that are interested in similar things, whether they're buying or selling. And so for us, this idea of proactive engagement where you're actually bringing to the consumer things that are relevant to them versus waiting for them to engage you as a brand is much more significant. And the challenge with that is if you don't have the breadth of product or the breadth of inventory or the value, it's hard to get somebody to come back all the time. And you know, from your guys' perspective, your product is changing on a relatively frequent basis. So, whether it be necessity type product at Walmart or the constant evolution or desire for new fashion with a Zappos, people are engaged with those brands. I think where traditional retailers tend to struggle is that they're not turning over their product fast enough, and that consumers, in fact, are more educated than the retailers themselves, which puts them in a different disadvantage. And so I think you got to change that in order to establish a more relevant, proactive engagement strategy.
Well, I mean, sort of speaking to that, I mean, how do you measure whether something you've introduced, like the Feed, for instance, which was introduced last fall, I believe, how do you measure whether that or not that has been successful, or whether or not it's reached a certain number of users? I mean, obviously, your definition of success is different from a startup's.
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't know. I would argue that sales at the end of the day is the biggest KPI that you can measure against. I think feedback, right? So we focus very heavily on understanding how our buyers and sellers utilize our environment in order to evolve our technology. Right, sales and just general engagement. So we track everything from, as you know, because I'm guessing that many of you, if not all of you, hopefully have used the eBay site in the past. But we track whether you're watching something, so you track whether you're watching an item. We know all of that data, and so if something pops up in your feed and you end up saving that as a saved search or watching that item or either purchasing it then or auctioning or bidding on that item, we're able to collect that data, actually see not only whether you're using the functionality, but more importantly, whether the items that are actually being presented to you are relevant. Right? And so it gets smarter. It's a learning device. It gets smarter over time.
So how is Feed doing? Anything you're willing to share in terms of numbers?
I can't share any specific numbers, but I can tell you that you can continue to see it evolve. And from an adoption rate, it is far beyond anything that we could have expected.
I think for our projects out of labs, different metrics, but I think we're actually not unlike a lot of startups. You know, a lot of like the lean analytics stuff in lean startup movements, like kind of pick one metric per your startup that you kind of focus on at start. We kind of do that. So for Glance, for example, we look at sales and all the stuff, like how many people hired stuff and all that's interesting, but we actually don't optimize for sales for an early product because, you know, like all these experiments, all the things you guys probably do in these small experiments, like your Kate Spade project, you know, your Spark stuff, super interesting, but those sales are never going to be more than small, tiny rounding errors. So I think the things we look at is, you know, how many times are we getting people to come back to the engagement side? And then, you know, even that's like what's a good metric. So we kind of looked a little bit to like the Y Combinator group, where they say, you know, that good successful startup, you're growing at like 5 to 7% week over week. That's a decent baseline. If we can hit that, it kind of is encouraging, then we'll keep trying to optimize that.
Got it. So I hate to keep injecting Amazon in here, but I feel like it's obviously very well.
We don't mind.
Right, obviously we don't mind. It's your parent company, but
we love them.
You know, Jeff Bezos has said in the past that you need to, or at least he believes, that a company needs to fail in order to succeed. I imagine that not all of your social experiments have done well. So can you talk about some of the failures that you guys have had so far and what you've learned from them?
Yeah, so I think to us it's not necessarily failure, it's lessons learned. We have many experiments going at the same time. So the way Labs is organized, we have very small teams that's focused on different projects. And we're encouraged to take risk because we're small, we can move fast, we can also fail fast. And some of the things that I would say that we've learned from, so one good example is about 2 years ago, there was a lot of buzz about social shopping. And many folks, and I'm not going to name names, what they took social shopping to meant was you take your website and slap it on Facebook. The same experience. And one big learning from that, obviously, it's people do not go to Facebook to shop. That was the wrong arena, the wrong platform. And the other big learnings, not just us, from many companies too, is that not to focus on one particular channel. So in our case, we're looking at many different channels today. Obviously we're looking at Facebook, but we're looking at places like Pinterest, Wanito, just in terms of what people are doing, casting a net out there to get a general idea, a general pattern, rather than focus on one thing. So those are projects that sort of validated some of the learnings that we've taken. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. So most businesses that I've worked for in the past have always focused around, sort of your performance metrics have always been measured around how many products you bring to market, right? And that is in some cases true still now for me here, but we actually have a metric on how many products fail, right? So we actually have a goal to sunset or eliminate some certain ideas, because there are no shortage of great ideas. And I'm sure if we went around this room, we could probably come up with 1,000 great ideas, but at the end of the day, and they would all have legs, but at the end of the day, we couldn't focus on 1,000 great ideas. So we're constantly looking at things that we have in market or want to bring to market and potentially fail them. And so in some respects, it's like going to camp every day, right? We get to build great stuff, and at the end, you're sort of working on that potter's wheel, and you create this great item, and at the end, it's time to leave, and you just crush it all back down again. And there's a variety of reasons why that happens, but we're constantly looking at new ideas and breaking down ones that we feel like we could do better in the long term.
I think the three of us have like the best jobs in e-commerce because we're like measured on how much we fail, and it's awesome. But like same with us, we've done probably one of my favorite projects we've done out of Labs was a project called What to Wear, and it's like the problem it was solving was what should I wear to blank? We all have that problem at different points in our lives, and we did some research, and we found, for example, like things like wedding, job interview, and a date were the three things where people are like, I don't know what to wear. And if you think about if I went to Walmart.com, eBay.com, or even Zappos, and I said what to wear to a job interview, none of our sites will help you with that. So we're like, let's solve that problem. And so we built an app. It never got out of like alpha, but we piloted it with maybe 3,000 test users. And a lot of people said, yeah, I have this problem. They typed what they wanted. But the moment they had that, okay, now invite your friends to help shop with you. No one wanted to do that. And I think that was maybe, they didn't want to do that in a Zappos experience. Maybe a startup solving that problem with a bit more neutrality could have been more interesting. But I think it's still a real problem that needs to be solved.
Cool. I mean, yeah, I'd love to know what to wear to a date because I always have that problem. Like, but.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. So which channels do resonate with you? Robert, you said Facebook, not so much.
From an e-commerce perspective, not so much, but they're great in terms of identifying close relationships. And what I mean by that, families and friends, your close friends. And that is a potential channel that, the concept of gifting. I just care to give gifts to my close friends, but I don't give gifts to my second degree or third degree. There are other areas which are, Pinterest is one great area today. And the reason that is it's very visual, and there's a lot of producers out there on Pinterest. What I mean by that, there's a lot of people actually pinning rather than just consuming. So that is an expression of the personality, which is, again, it's great for us to identify what people, what their tastes are. In that aspect, one thing we're looking into, other channels that we're looking, I mentioned Wanito, and also things like Instagram. Essentially, where people are going today, what are what are your average people spending their time on? And then that's where we believe is where they express themselves the most, and potentially where where we could just discover aspects of it that might help the commerce side.
Yeah, so I would challenge in some cases that eBay is almost the initial Pinterest, right? It's the initial social site. You can find everything, anything, things you would never even think that you wanted on eBay, right? It's amazing, right? So from a social perspective, every item. So unlike Walmart that has a finite set, or Zappos that has a finite set, and you're really engaged with a social environment. So again, social for us, it's just viewed as another component. Right? Social's been around forever. It's just one more component. Where we're really focused on is trying to, again, bridge that gap between online and offline. We grew up in the online world, much like Zappos online world. Walmart grew up in the traditional offline world. So where we see the biggest opportunity now is going where consumers are. And there are certain things that consumers will always buy in traditional brick and mortar. There are things that consumers are comfortable buying in online. So how you bridge that gap and create that unified experience and allow a consumer to engage with a brand or a product or a sales process in the way that they want to engage is what's critical to us. And that's why the technology solutions we're working on and all the items that we're bringing to market, whether it be for our own core businesses or third-party retailers, are really designed to, again, to connect those buyers and sellers. So from a social perspective, everything is social for us. It's not Pinterest, it's not Facebook, it's not Twitter. It's all of those and everything else out there, including, by the way, the feedback that comes on your own sites, right? So whether you're getting it from the Buzzmetrics of the world or whoever.
I think I was going to add a bit more to that too. I think the big thing about a lot of these channels is that there's two aspects actually. One aspect, obviously, using technology to discover what people are doing or discovering their taste profiles. The other bigger aspect, which I think is, especially recently with folks like Fab.com, is the curation aspect. So we're seeing a lot of, curation means two things. One, specialists. You have special merchants that are, trendsetters or tastemakers that create certain items. But then you also have the crowd, which I think that's where Pinterest and Wonderdo comes in, where, based on the pattern, what the crowds are doing, certain product or certain trends sort of floats up. So those are, I think those are very, going forward are potentially huge signals in terms of identifying things that a consumer may want, especially if you belong to certain cohorts. And that's where I think where the push aspect comes into play. I don't want to continue going to a site to search for things, but if certain things are pushed to me and it makes sense, then absolutely I'm going to get engaged with that.
Here's a question from Twitter for you, Robert. Is showrooming killing brick and mortar retail, or is there a way to benefit from the practice?
So if you really think about what the goal of showrooming is, it's essentially price comparison. I mean, that's bottom line. But I think that price at a certain point, it becomes the value. Obviously, the price point can mean a difference, but the differences may become minimal in some cases. And what I mean by that is, I going back to my first, my initial statement, that there's two ways to shop. One is transactional based, where your mindset, you're going in to get a TV for a certain price, and that's what I'm focused on. But there's the other aspect of shopping, which is the experience based, where I'm going in there. Now I may be looking for a TV, but there are other items I'm looking for too. And I think that's where showrooming would not be an issue. I mean, we wouldn't be part of the problem. But the key thing is, I think that it's definitely an issue that we're trying to address today. But at the end of the day, is we're going for the whole journey rather than just focusing on winning on the price point to challenge the showrooming.
Well, another question for you, Robert, but any of you can answer this, obviously. I mean, do you think physical retail stores will get more social, perhaps taking online elements offline, and how so? Maybe like concrete examples would be great.
Yeah, so we do a lot of experiments, both online and offline, and some experiments included using Twitter in the local aspect. So what I mean by that is, right now you go to a Walmart store, if you need help, you will find an associate within the store. And there are cases where help can be many different levels, like how do I search for, where do I find the milk, or where do I find product X. So what we do is we had an experiment where you could actually tweet to a local account, a local Twitter account, and there's an associate who monitors those accounts. So two things that will happen, either associate can help you, and what we found is also people in the store who are following those accounts could potentially help too. So that could mean finding products or getting product reviews, or what do you think about this product, people, in the Mountain View store. So we've tried things like that, and those are experiments that we tried.
How many people actually did that?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but the number of followers for those accounts were in the tens of thousands. And the key thing is localized. So, example, we have one store in Mountain View, so obviously it only makes sense if you're in the Mountain View area to follow that account.
And we've actually built an associate platform that enables the associates within a retailer to actually have access to all of their product data, sales data, consumer data, the ability to conduct an in-aisle checkout, the ability to listen socially to what people are saying about the products, to essentially arm these associates with more information than the consumer. So basically, it's bringing the breadth of omni-channel data to the in-store experience. Because at the end of the day, the associates are your brand evangelists, right? The associates in brick and mortar are the ones who are on the front lines every single day dealing with consumers, trying to engage them in that process. There's so much data that sits up above at corporate, at the enterprise level, that's not filtering down. And so what some of the technology solutions, again, that we've built to enable these third-party retailers is how do you bring some of that enterprise-level data to the associate to actually make it more actionable, to give them something, right? And then, similarly, tying the experience of an online experience to an offline experience where you're actually able to transfer a cart that I may have created online to the in-store associate. So I put a few items in my cart at home while I'm sitting in front of my computer, but now I walk in the store, the associate is able to pull up my profile and see the cart that I had online and actually complete the purchase for me in store. So it's sort of a version of buy online, pick up in store, but it's more like hold online, pick up in store, or think about it online and pick up in store.
Just super briefly, I think from Zappos' perspective, because we don't have brick and mortar, we actually get a lot of inspiration from what's already happening socially in brick and mortar. So people shop with their friends in malls and stores, and they don't do that online. And that casual socialness, like I see someone who's stylish, that, oh, she looks like my style. I'm wondering what she's looking at right now. Like that built-in social is tough to bring online. So we think about that a lot.
Great. Well, maybe one last question for one of you. I'd love to hear maybe one project integrating social that you're really excited about. As an example, for instance, Dave, I think it was at Investors Day, maybe like a few months ago, you introduced this marketplaces iPad sort of app that's in the works, but far in the works, that basically aggregates shopping inventory from various stores nearby. Maybe one last example.
Yep, so that's Milo, right? So Milo is a product where we're able to do a local search of inventory and enable that online so you can search for a particular product and find that in a local store.
Well, that's actually all the time we have, but our thanks to Dave Geisinger of eBay, Robert Yao of Walmart Labs, and Will Young of Zappos. Thanks for your time, guys.
Thank you.